Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Social Blueprint interview where we are always bringing people in a community who you may or may not know, but everybody has a story and we can learn something from everybody. And with that introduction, I am thrilled today to be joined by Ellie Gurgiel, who's the head of skin innovation at Mecca, but she's also had an innovative career herself, and we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about the Jewish community, we're going to talk about Mecca, and also all those learnings along the way. And with that introduction, Ellie, welcome.
Thanks, Greg. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Ellie, I've got to ask right out of the gate, Mecca and makeup and beauty, it feels like such a crowded field. There's so many different brands. How does one separate themselves out?
I think it's such a good question. It is one of those industries where there is so much noise out there, and you can find there's something for everyone. And whether you're going direct to consumer online, whether you're in one of the department stores, whether you're in Mecca, I mean, even you look at the overseas brands that customers can access here. The industry is wild. I will say it always comes down to knowing the customer and solving for a specific customer problem. And there are some really clever brands out there that have just gotten to the heart of that customer need and shaped a product around it.
Incredible. And also Mecca specifically. Now, Mecca is obviously an incredible founder-led success story, but it's not the first one, let's face it, to come out the door and say, gee, makeup is a great idea. What do you think does make Mecca special? And especially, as we were talking before, you're not afraid to get into the weeds, are you?
Yeah, 100%. Mecca is just such a unique use case, and I think it's fair to say it's raised eyebrows globally as well. It's not just in the local market that it's noticed. There are probably a few things in it. I think you never stand still.
Right.
No matter what we're working on, no matter what you're delivering, there's always what's next. Where does this go after that? So you're constantly iterating, and we'll open a new store and the next day we'll do a full top to tail review of what's working, what's not, how do we pull in learnings for the next store. Like, it's just so far from stagnant. It's crazy.
Wow. That community, and I'm going to tie this in to the Jewish community as well. Mecca has been incredible about building community.
Yeah.
I must confess, I don't go into a lot of Meccas except for my children, but you can certainly feel the second you walk in the door there. Is that deliberate?
Absolutely deliberate. And I think that we inherently do this well as Jewish people. You open your home up, you have guests at your Shabbat table that you may not know, and it's that being hospitable is just part of our very nature. And I think what Mecca does so well is that is part of every team member's role. So they're not they're actually called hosts. They're your Mecca host when you come in, and you are hosting the customer in that store. And it's that warmth, it's the what else, how do we actually help you today? So it's really easy. Customers come in and say, great, I need a moisturizer. Go help them find a moisturizer, see you later. But there's so much opportunity for conversation and deepening that connection. A really good host will actually go so much further than just a moisturizer.
Right.
And you find that particularly when customers are talking beauty, there's a lot of vulnerability there when you're talking about your skin concerns or your insecurities, and it's about the team actually wrapping their arms around that customer. But what it boils down to is it's not about looking good, it's actually about helping customers feel really good about themselves. And so just like you welcome someone into your home, it should feel the same in that store.
Incredible. And I'm going to shift the conversation now very hard to the Jewish community, because you're an active member of the Jewish community, certainly even more so potentially since October 7th, but way back then too. Just tell us about your earlier years, maybe the teenage years, like what got you so involved and connected?
To be honest, I think it was once I left. So I went to Jewish school my whole life. Okay. I then moved across to Monash, almost felt like a Jewish school still.
Yeah,
and then I think once I was at university, I felt a little bit lost. I was working in a restaurant part-time, I was studying, and I just sort of felt like something's really missing.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting involved with Stand Up at the time and doing their food rescue program, which was fabulous. I got to pick up packaged unused items like jams and sugar sachets and things like that from Cabrini Hospital.
Okay.
We'd take it to school, we'd run a 30-minute education program about something to do with a social justice issue. And then all the kids would count and sort all the different food items, and then we'd distribute it to different organisations.
Amazing.
Did that for ages, and then ended up doing Derek Eretz, which was the Indigenous program.
Okay.
That stand-up still continues to run. And after that, the CEO at the time, Gary, said, you know what, I actually think you'd really get a lot out of joining our board. Do you want to come and sit and help us with minutes and notes? And I said, sure, I'd love to get board exposure.
Okay.
And then over time, I slowly sort of weaseled my way in, and they said, you know, do you think you'll be company secretary? We actually need someone with a legal background. And I said, I don't really know what I'm doing as a lawyer, but sure, I can do that.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. And then I was on the board for quite many years. I couldn't even tell you how many years. And then it was after after my first child, I think, you know what, I think I'm ready to step down. I've done my time.
Yeah.
And then community is different, and it's different now. So for me, it's I did a couple of years of the Young Achievers program through Jewish Care,
right,
mentoring 2 different girls in their late teens, and I absolutely adored that. The connection that you can build and how you can impact their lives is tremendous. And then this, at the moment, I'm taking a bit of a pause on it, but I do think with Jewish schools and post-October 7 and the threat, security is really important. So I keep up my parent security group shifts.
Okay.
So that's why I think that's this year, but there's no other formal commitments on top of it.
Right.
But I think it's about whole of person, and there's never a good time to put your hand up or do anything. You've just got to make it work in the midst of it all.
Yeah. You know, Ellie, talking about just making it work, there's never a perfect time. You mentioned also offline about not being a perfectionist, and this is a character trait, but how it can help you, because sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. Can you just talk about that?
100%. Yeah, and I think this is a bit of a misconception. I think people think I'm super type A, everything has to be perfect. I'm relentless at getting things done, and it's honestly the opposite, because I'm all about being efficient and optimizing time. And that to me is far more important. So if you get a piece of work to 70% of the way there, you could spend hours and hours and hours getting it to 100%.
Right.
That incremental effort, is that going to deliver a different outcome? Most of the time, no. That 70% work will get you the outcome that you're looking for. And so I'd rather do more and be more efficient with my time than do something perfectly. And to be honest, I think that's okay. I haven't been... it hasn't caused me any trouble to this day.
So far, you've been okay.
Yeah, and I just don't see the benefit in that last sort of 20-30% some of the time.
Yeah, and it's interesting because tying that into even Mecca as an example, you try a campaign or you try something, aren't you iterating it almost immediately? Because nothing tends to work perfectly out of the gate. Immediately.
Even something that I've been working on is I've got all these sinks in stores, literally sinks.
Okay,
where you're meant to take skincare products and try out a beautiful cleanser on your hand, or see how a scrub feels, or smell a soap. And we're like, how are we actually helping customers shop around the sink? So I've sort of, the last few months, worked on a few different ways of storytelling around the sink. It's gone in, it's gone out, it's been changed, it's taken on a life of its own. The store team give us feedback. Some things are really hard to get right.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's such a small thing to solve for, but you need to find a way to tell stories effectively by a skin sink.
Yeah.
And so, it is that constant change and updating it. It's same, you look at our services and how we're doing, how we do facials and skin services and stuff. Customers love them, but you also go, how do we then take this to the next level? So I do think it's the constantly iterating and taking it a step further and being really smart about how you take it further.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, by having that mentality of it just has to be 75% right, does that actually give you the mental freedom to say, look, we're going to innovate this anyway, so there's no sense in spending that extra 40 hours to get it to 90%, so to speak? Yeah,
I think there's just let's just get it done. Yeah. Let's just get something out there. Let's see what happens. Let's gather feedback, and then we can go from there, 100%. Because also it's the same thing with spending hours and hours making the perfect PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Everyone's really over PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So we try to actually do more white papers.
Right.
So pink papers, whatever colour you want to call them, but it's a more concise way to share information and get endorsement on something, rather than perfecting your design and your slides. It's actually about the words that you write to deliver a message, and that sometimes is easier than a PowerPoint.
Yeah,
I think with the background in consulting, I revert to PowerPoint, so it's my own challenge just to go, no, this is actually an email. This is a quick Word document. Like, we don't need to over-engineer it each time.
Absolutely. And you said consulting, and also maybe, talking about 70-75%, your iterations is life, but you started out as a consultant?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before then, I did law and accounting.
Okay.
And after, I think I did VAC work at an accounting firm, and they offered me a job, and I was just like, I just can't do this.
Yeah.
This is not my life. I do not want to be an auditor.
Right.
And then I did a bunch of clerkships and never got offered a role at a law firm.
Okay.
And I think it just wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
I hated every minute of every clerkship.
That's generally a clue.
Yeah, I hated it. I watched the time. The days went so slowly. I didn't like sitting all by myself at a little desk.
Right.
It just wasn't suitable to me. And then it was actually quite funny. It was when I spent some time in New York. I feel like I'll share this. This is a funny story.
Yeah, definitely.
I spent some time in New York, and my husband at the time and I had broken up for a good amount of time, and I decided to do J-Date in New York.
Okay.
And it was on J-Date. I went on a few different dates with different guys living in New York, and quite a few of them worked in consulting, and I was like, what's consulting? Is that something, like, it just piqued my interest more than anything had. And I remember calling my parents from New York and just going, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm giving that up. I want to go into consulting. And they're like, great, good for you. You do you. But it really was like a light bulb moment to go, what am I doing trying to become a lawyer?
Really?
100%.
So the second in your mind that you said, I'm not going to do this anymore, did you almost feel like, I don't know if you call it relief?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the life of a lawyer and what was ahead of me, it just didn't sit right.
It wasn't Ellie.
Yeah, and then you sort of like, well, I've got this accounting degree, I've got this law degree, I don't want to do either of those things. And so it was then I came back and started applying for roles, and actually I didn't even bother applying for any of the top tier strategy houses. I didn't apply for any McKinsey's or Bain.
Yeah.
I just thought I don't want that for my life.
Right.
I still want to live a normal life. I'm not one to just give everything over and work 18-hour days every day.
Yeah.
I just wasn't going to. So I applied for a bunch of the big four, doing consulting with them, and that's where things really clicked to go, okay, this feels like you like me, I like you,
Really?
Yeah, it just felt right. And then I was lucky enough to get a role at PwC in their consulting team.
Beautiful.
And it just served as a really good starting point into just diversity of what you can do.
Right.
Because you're jumping from project to project, from client problem to client problem. Each time it's like starting a brand new job, but it's this muscle that you actually end up flexing and becoming good at. And so for someone who I've never wanted to specialise, to be honest. I think that that's a challenge today because there is this pressure to be very good at one particular thing.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think I've now accepted that it's okay to be a generalist. And that is probably my skill set, that whatever you throw at me, I will figure it out. And I think consulting is absolutely to thank for that. You just get used to that ambiguity and not knowing and having to figure things out.
Yes, and as somebody who I've used experts over the years there, you do find that within a week you can become entirely, engrossed in a different industry.
Yeah, you learn. And then you need to, I think, just be okay with not knowing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people aren't okay sitting with the ambiguity and the unknown, where you're sort of like, I don't know what problem I'm solving, I don't know your industry, I don't know what you do. You just once you're accepting of, you know what, this is a really uncomfortable couple of weeks, or however long, and I don't know now much, but I'm going to ask all the questions and I'm going to learn, and you'd be amazed at how much you can pick things up, and then you see commonalities between industries and problems that you're trying to solve. So I would say that background has given me comfort in the unknown.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how did you go from there to Mecca, or was it a straight line?
It was not a straight line. So it was after my second child, and I just thought, you know what, I think I'm done with this.
Right.
Because it's really fatiguing. You invest so much in that client, in that problem that you're working on for them. You start sort of, you'd work with the client. Yeah, and you say we, and then you're like, no, it's not we. I'm not part of your company, but I feel like I've been here for months and I should be. And then you almost hand over these beautiful babies that you've made.
Right.
Projects that you've worked on for so long, and then hand it over and you walk out and you start the next one. And I think what I was missing was that deep knowledge of an industry or a particular business and of the people that you can actually affect change over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
I was also really aware of not having any operational experience.
Okay.
So consultants are notorious for sort of like, you make a great pack, you come up with some really good recommendations, you might do some planning for how to implement, but then you hand back over and you walk out.
Right.
So it was a real gap in my experience. And so I call my discovery phase.
Okay.
So after deciding that I was ready to leave PwC, I ended up coming up with a hit list.
Okay.
Of people I wanted to speak with. I trawled through LinkedIn, I trawled through my phone book, and just sort of said, who do I want to speak with?
Right. And
very open, it was discovery. Well, it wasn't asking anyone for a job, it was just going, can you tell me about what you do and about your industry? And I spoke to people who worked at startups, who worked in venture capital, who worked in FMCG, like you name it. I went really, really broad.
Wow.
And that helped distill almost like a checklist of things that were really critical.
Yeah.
And I think with my experience in digital plus strategy plus customer experience, I wanted something that wasn't just digital, but that had a physical component. And so I didn't want to work for like a pure play online only company. It was more going, what has a physical and a digital presence? I knew I needed some kind of trade or operational experience. Right. And then it was about, I think it was just about finding a person that I really wanted to connect with to employ me, because if you look at who you're reporting into and who your boss is, it needs to be someone that you can learn from. Yeah,
and so did you meet then Joe, or did you reach out to
him?
So
I had a good friend who worked for Mecca, and so I caught up with her as part of my discovery process, and very quickly said, I'm asking for you for a job. I actually don't want to work at Mecca.
People want what they can't have.
It really, and I think also with my background in consulting, I was used to working in more male-dominated environments, and I knew there were a lot of women at Mecca.
Okay.
And I just thought, I don't think I want to work with all the women. And so I completely ruled it out. And then my friend sent me a job description for something to do with digital or virtual services. And I was like, no, definitely not. It's too junior. It's too like. She's like, please, just apply. Just go through the motions. So I ended up applying, and throughout the interview process, it sort of things started clicking. Yeah. And I thought, you know what, this is a really random job. I have a really random skill set. This kind of works, and it did tick a lot of those boxes in straddling digital and physical, running a team. A few of those things. And then I'm pleased to say that the quality of women at Mecca is like, they're the best group of people.
Really?
And even just when I was still not sure about it, I was waiting out the front before my interview, and every single person that walked outside said, are you looking for anyone? Can I help you get in the door? Right. Can I call someone for you? Like, you can't imagine how many people stopped to see if I needed help. And it was that moment that I'm like, okay, these are really good people that work here. And so I think that alleviated some of my doubts.
Incredible. And it just shows you how, people make plans and God laughs, so to speak. I'm sure if you look back, Ellie, 20 years or 10 years ago even, would you imagine where you are today?
No, because I didn't even know, I didn't even know that it existed. And you have to say, throughout school, throughout university, consulting wasn't on my radar at all. I didn't even know that was an option. And same, I feel so lucky to be able to work in skincare, in innovation, and almost carve out my own adventure for how do we change the game for skin. And I kind of had this view that it doesn't, because when you work in consulting, you work on so many different great projects. Yeah. Whether you're working for a gas company or government or
Right.
educate. Like, it's so broad, and you realise the subject matter doesn't really matter as long as you're working on something interesting
Yes.
and with good people. It's great. It's almost like it's a widget. Whatever you're working on, it doesn't matter. But then I have to say, working in beauty, it's just so refreshing.
Really?
It is so refreshing. Like, I love the subject matter, and I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. But the conversations we get to have, the problems we get to solve, it is not a life or death industry.
Right.
No one's dying over a lipstick, which is perfect. But there's a lightness to the industry, which I think was exactly what I needed.
Right. So hit you at the right place, the right time.
100%.
And also, I think that looking back, even as you said, you realized you didn't want to be a lawyer, you didn't want to be an accountant, but still the skills that you acquired there, perhaps they do still help you a little bit today. And if nothing else, you've got to figure out what you don't want to do.
Totally. I mean, I feel every time a contract comes past my desk, I feel completely petrified by it, and then I send it through to the lawyers to look at. But, I think there's enough of a baseline understanding that I do kind of know what to look out for. Same thing with accounting. I can read a balance sheet and know what the numbers mean. Do I have to do accounting? No.
Right.
But I would say it's just that general financial and legal acumen, which is probably helpful and which you never regret having.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, a store has to make a profit.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ellie, what an incredible story that you have and that you're still living. And I love how you've jumped around a bit, and it really a role model for how to navigate the world. And life isn't perfect, is it?
Not at all. And, I reflect on starting at Mecca in this digital virtual services role. I've moved, I think I've had this is my third different role since then. The world keeps changing in a really good way. After doing that virtual services role, we realised that, I'll set the scene. Would you like me to set the scene?
Definitely.
So
Absolutely.
It was during COVID. And we had customers who were so reliant on coming in store, talking to our store team, receiving product recommendations.
Right.
And so we said, well, in a world where we're not able to open stores, how do we bring our team to the customer? And so we put in a functionality to enable customers to video chat with the store team and get live. So you could say, I'm this colour foundation, can you help do a shade match with me from store?
Right.
And so you could video chat, they could send photos. It was a great way to service the customer at the time. And then there was this aspiration to go, imagine if we could take this to customers all around the world. Imagine if customers who are rural or unable to leave the house could access our team. And so my role was to then create a team that did this in store, even out of COVID.
Wow.
To actually deliver virtual services and experiences to our customers. And that worked very well in COVID and lockdown.
Yeah.
We launched Charlotte Tilbury, one of the biggest makeup brands in that time, and we needed that team. We had, I couldn't even tell you how many people providing virtual shade matching to customers. And then after COVID settled down, customers flocked back into stores.
I think a desperation for community again, a connection.
Totally. And you just want to talk to someone.
Right.
And let them see your face. And so we were able to go, you know what, our stores are not the right model to deliver virtual services out of. There is some demand here, but does it make sense to have a Mecca host in a store talking to customers elsewhere?
Right.
No. And so within 6 months of starting, I effectively made myself redundant from that first role.
Lovely.
But in a really positive way, going, you know what, we've gone through the motions, we've tested and we've tried to prove it out. This isn't the right model. So we ended up bringing that capability back into customer care. So if you do speak to a customer care team member, they're able to actually video chat with you and give you product recommendations. You still have the capability, but it's just not delivered out of stores.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we're going to have follow-up questions for you, but again, such an interesting story. And I think that also, especially we know that there are a lot of young girls out there, life is not, it's a journey, and it's not where you start, it's how you get along the way, I suppose.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me. It was great to chat.
Bye-bye.